Thank you very much. My name is Inka. I'm compulsive eater, but I am abstinent and grateful because I weigh and measure my 3 meals a day of the Cambridge GreySheet as written. I write my meals down. I commit them to my sponsor on time. I eat my meals no matter what, and I don't eat between my meals no matter what. And abstinence is the most important thing in my life, without exception, because if I'm not abstinent, I don't have a life and I don't have a recovery. And thank you, Grania, for asking me to do the qualification. Um, I feel actually a little bit embarrassed that I don't come to this meeting more often, because I started this meeting 6 years ago and I sort of let it go. Um, but I'm one of the very blessed ones who have face-to-face meetings. So in the city where I live in London, which is quite abundant when it comes to the meetings in general, but not the GreySheet meetings. We have only one face-to-face meeting. Um, but um, when I started my abstinence, when I started on the GreySheet, I actually didn't have any meetings around. I couldn't even join phone meetings nor online meetings because there was only one online meeting, which was in American time. That was lunchtime when I was at work, so it was impossible. I had no money to join the phone bridges, um, but I remained abstinent. So the reason why I'm saying it is not a recipe for um, uh, or a proof, that it works even without the meetings. That's not what I'm trying to say. If you are in the area where there are no meetings, um, and you suddenly start to think possibly that okay, she made it, so I can make it. That's not what I'm trying to say. Don't try it. Um, what I'm trying to say is that I started my abstinence in the house where I lived with my grandma. She's a compulsive eater. Um, it was full of foods which we don't eat. Um, yeah, like I said, no meetings. I was the only one in the country, but I was just done with food. I was just like sick and tired. And I remember I was sat in a car crying to somebody who 12-stepped me to the GreySheet, and she was telling me like, yeah, we don't eat this, we don't eat that. And when I speak to the newcomers and I tell them like, yeah, we don't eat this, we don't eat that, it always makes me cringe, like they're gonna expect them to hang up the phone. um like, oh my god, I'm not going to do this because this is too restrictive. But I sort of, I remember I didn't, I had absolutely no issue with anything we don't eat because on the GreySheet, because all I wanted was just to have peace of mind, just to have silence between my ears, just to be happy, because I was 5 years clean in another fellowship, and I felt like I have no recovery at all whatsoever, because I did a lot of service. I did a lot of PI and age, and I was very passionate about it, and speaking to the newcomers, and I was talking about the spiritual principles of honesty, open-mindedness, and how my life improved. And I just felt like a fraud. And I was chair of age and I, and doing a presentation in hospitals and institutions, and talking to them about how my life improved with being in recovery and with 12-step fellowship. And the first thing I did after the whole service was just I went home and closed the curtains, and I just couldn't wait until I binge. That was all I knew. That was actually all I wanted for a very long time. But in the end, it didn't work as well. The effects just stopped working, and I was in a relationship, and my partner in that time, he was very concerned about my health, and he knew he was from the fellowship as well, and he knew what I'm doing, and he sort of like diplomatically told me that if you don't stop, I will break up with you because I don't want to be a part of this. It's insane. So, and I didn't want to lose him. And of course, like I said, I was done with the food, and I was for 4 years in another food fellowship, which didn't work for me at all. I was frustrated, and then Grey Sheet was introduced to me, and I just accepted it as it was. And I met. It was so bizarre, but at the same time, it was all like perfectly integrated. Um, because there was this woman who is originally from America, but she was on a business trip in Slovakia. How random is that? Like no one goes to Slovakia. So, and she was there on the other side of the country, and she was supposed to spend and they put me in touch with her. So, and she was supposed to be just like one night in the capital where I lived. And I was at the team building, and I said to my manager that I need to leave the team building in like early hour because I wanted to meet this woman. And of course I didn't tell him the reason. I just said that it's very, very important for me, and I'm really sorry. And he was so angry with me. I really risked that I'm gonna get into trouble, but I just didn't care. I didn't care at all, because all I wanted was just to live and just to get better. So when I met her, and um, it was funny because I was talking to this lady who sat with me, in the hotel lobby, and talked me through the Grey Sheet. So I spoke to her today, and I'm celebrating 10 years, but in another fellowship today. So, and yeah, so we were like discussing, the journey, and sort of like summarizing, and then I just like I don't even know how we got into that actually. I think that I just told her what my plans are for today, and I said like, yeah, I'm going to the gym just to maintain my six pack, because believe it or not, I've got a six pack. And she was like, what? I remember when I met you 6 years ago in Slovakia, all you were talking about was your huge belly and how much you hated, and you were just like touching it and in front of me. And for the next 3 months, when I was in touch with you, it just like I was like sick of you talking about your belly all the time. But that was my life, believe or not. I'm sure that you can identify with this, or with certain parts of your body, that all I was obsessed about and focused on was just my belly. And I hated it. I hated myself. I hated my life. I hated my boyfriend. I hated the fellowship which I was in. I hated the people. I just hated everything and everyone. And I remember my very first abstinent meal. It brought so much peace. And I remember I went to OA meeting, because I kept going to OA meeting because I thought like I'm doing the right thing. But then somebody told me like, what, you're still going to OA? Just let it go, because it's just not good for you. And I said it at the meeting, like I finally found abstinence. Like I know what the definition of the abstinence is, and I don't have to figure it out myself, as I was always recommended to do. Like, how am I supposed to figure out my own abstinence? What is that? That it's impossible for compulsive eater. And I finally found it. And I remember I was living with my grandma. There was like these piles of food which we don't eat, and they were just there, and I didn't care. And it was such a freedom, and I went to bed, and for the first time I went to bed, and I didn't overeat, and I woke up, and I didn't have those feelings of being sick from all the foods I ate. And I went to work, and I just felt, yeah, like empty, you know, like when you properly digest your food, and you're looking forward to your breakfast. And
5 minutes, Inka.
thank you. And slowly started to build up the relationship with food, and my body started to change, and slowly started to fall in love with my food, and with my body, and with myself, and the transformation I've been going through was just ineffable and incredible. And I started to see how everything is interconnected and interlinked with the food. Um, just for example, you know, that I know my right size. And I'm not talking now only about the clothes, like when I go shopping, which totally bores me. But before, I was absolutely obsessed about shopping, and I was compulsive shopper, especially the clothes, because I was trying to buy thin, you know. But now I know my right size, and I barely actually go into the fitting room because I know that the clothes will fit me. Um, so that's one thing. But what I mean by that is as well the humbleness and the humility, um, because that what literally means, you know, to know your right size. And I know it because I've got the scale. The scale always shows me. Um, it also showed me friends, because coming to the Gray Sheet worked as a sort of like a sieve or colander, yeah, you know, like when you strain something. And my relationships changed, you know, the friends who I was a friend with before Gray Sheet, I'm not a friend with them anymore, because Gray Sheet took that fog out of my head and out of my life. I started to see clearly um, who I was with in a relationship, and with my partner or ex-partner as well. Um, and I started to weigh and measure almost everything in my life, including time, money, like I said, relationships, love, um, and the street gets narrower and narrower, as we say in the fellowship. In the beginning, I used like liters of diet coke and artificial sweeteners just in order to fix myself. I was a smoker. It's gross. And I'm so grateful that I don't smoke anymore, because well, um, but um, you know, I had to face other areas of my recovery, like compulsive debt and spending, under earning. But everything is like weighed and measured, even the time. Like I weigh and measure my time, and how much time I spend for certain activities, for certain people. And and uh, I don't take any shit, if you know what I mean. Um, recently, actually not really recently, yesterday I discovered, just to mention, you know, that I recently actually had to surrender caffeine as well, because slowly I started to get rid of these, you know, like chewing gums and all these substances which I used to as crutches, in order to sort of like be with myself, and deal with myself, because when I'm left just with myself, it felt so uncomfortable. And that's the journey of this recovery, you know, to really be comfortable in my own skin and be comfortable with myself and bear myself. um, and recently I had to completely cut down and surrender caffeine. Like I surrendered it in a way to my sponsor that if I have it, then it's a relapse, because I just can't afford any sort of like a halfways, or you know, yeah, I just had to surrender it, because it just that's the only way it works for me. That the longer I'm in recovery, the less the less bullshit I can bear, you know. um and the only way for me is just clear. Just everything has to be clear. No, I'm not talking about black and white. Don't take me wrong. There are certain areas, of this world and life where we have to like sort of compromise or something. But things just has to be clear for me. And yesterday I discovered actually another thing of my life which is very related to the relationships. And again, it's all about food. That I always go for men who just disappear from my life, like that sort of unavailability of theirs. And it was so painful and so uncomfortable to actually face it yesterday. But at the same time, I feel so proud of myself, and and so proud of and so grateful for GreySheet, because it just carries me through anything and no matter what. Um, in relationships where the first thing I was always binging on, that was like the thing, like, why don't you love me? What is wrong with me? I'm not enough. And that those were the reasons, behind many other reasons why I binged. And today I don't have to do it, and I can just sit with my feelings, can sit with my thoughts as well. I love this level of emotional maturity and emotional intelligence which GreySheet enabled me, because by having clear head and having clear plates, clear kitchen, clear house, my consciousness literally can expand. Because when my mind is cluttered, when my space is cluttered with dirty dishes, with food around and packaging, and yeah, no wonder that I was crazy. So yeah, my consciousness can expand, and with the work of the 12 steps, I'm very, very blessed that my sponsor took me through the steps several times, and I've been through the steps in other fellowships as well, and they are designed for me in order to have happy and joyous life. The purely staying abstinent is just not enough. To a certain degree it was, but then I had to just face the music and had to start working the steps. And the steps, how there's this beautiful analogy which I really love, the steps, they're like adapter. Like I live in
Time,
England,
Inka.
where thank you, I'll wrap it up. Like I live in England, I'm from Slovakia, and we have different sockets, and I always felt like I don't fit, like I don't belong, like I don't fit into the socket. And what GreySheet does for me, or the GreySheet steps, is that they are the adapter. Like finally I can fit. I can fit into clothes, I can fit into society, I can fit into community, I can fit into my own mind, and that is priceless. So thank you for letting me share. And yeah, I kiss you all, I embrace you all. And if you are new to this program, hopefully you could identify and not give it a shot. Don't give it a shot, just commit to it. Don't be silly, and just like do it and stay. And yeah, it works if we work it. Simple as that, no matter what.